Welcome to Season 2 of White Shores, the podcast for spiritual beings having a human experience. Let me invite you to walk once more beside me on white shores to talk about the real meaning of life and being sensitive, intuitive, a mystic in a material world. Let's talk about dreams, rituals, personal transformation, the possibility of an afterlife, angels, and other infinite possibilities. Season 1, recorded in 2019, featured interviews with some of the world's leading scientists currently researching consciousness, the existence of the mind separate from the brain. Listen to those mind-opening interviews if you can, because they left clear footprints in the sand for the carefully selected healers, psychics, mediums, authors, artists and experts featured in Season 2 to follow and speak to us from their hearts, the place where all love and wisdom begins, and to speak to us in 2020, the year the world turned upside down and spiritual clarity needed as never before. So, now the scene is set, let's walk barefoot on the sand and then pause a while to gaze together at the horizon to see what magic lies beyond the material. Thank you for arriving safely on White Shores with me today. In this profound episode, I'll be talking to a doctor, hospice worker, and best-selling author. It's a truly inspiring conversation. Do stay tuned after the interview too, as I'll share details about how to contact me with your suggestions and insights. And there's also a musical treat in tune with the What Truly Matters theme of this episode for you to relax, meditate, or visualize to. It's a piece of music that celebrates the power of unconditional love. Music unites both the creative and logical parts of your brain, and that's why listening to it can bring feelings of comfort, inspiration, and inner peace. Don't we all need that? As I said, the theme of this episode is what truly matters. We are surrounded by stories of bereavement right now. The loss of loved ones and considering our own mortality has a way of focusing the mind, doesn't it, on what really matters. But you don't need to wait for grief or fear or anxiety to wake you up to spirit. Every night when you go to sleep and let go of the day and drift into the land of sleep and dreams is a kind of mini death. Nobody really knows where we go when we dream. I believe we are in spirit when we lose consciousness. And if we are in spirit when we sleep, that means every morning when you wake up, you are born anew. Every new day is bursting with the astonishing miracle of your new life. Make it count. So tonight, when you go to sleep, treat those last few precious and sacred moments of the passing day with the respect, reverence, and gratitude they deserve. Ritualize saying goodbye to the passing day and all that it taught you, and as you drift off to sleep, know that Spirit, your guardian angel, or whatever you call heaven, is watching over you. But don't drift off to sleep just yet. There's a fantastic interview coming up and a piece of musical heaven, so stay tuned. If you would like to find out more about my books, warning, I'm a serial spiritual writer, there are a lot of them, my research, my media appearances and online talks and events, as well as my latest title and opportunities to win free gifts, please do visit www.teresachung.com and subscribe to my newsletter. If you want to listen to Season 1, you can find it on the podcast page of my website. And all episodes of both Season 1 and Season 2 are available on iTunes or wherever you download your podcast. Be honoured and grateful if you could leave a review there, as it helps the podcast get wider circulation and spreads the word that spirit is real. Walking beside me today on White Shores is doctor, hospice worker and best-selling author Karen Wyatt. With 2020 being the year where dying and death take centre stage as rarely seen before, there can be no better person to talk about this collective grief and how to find a sense of deeper meaning from it all than Karen. She's a family physician who has spent her 25-year medical career working with patients in challenging settings such as hospices and nursing homes. Motivated by her compassionate heart, she has put her spiritual beliefs into action by being of service to others in need and by developing Creative Healing LLC, an initiative to integrate spirituality into traditional medical practice. She has twice testified at Senate briefings on the cutting edge model of integrated medical care, combining physical and behavioral health, which she helped create and implement in her clinic for the uninsured. Applying her writing skills to medical topics, Dr. Wyatt has written, among others, the book What Really Matters: 7 Lessons for Living from the Stories of the Dying, which details her experiences as a hospice physician. She has done numerous lectures for hospices and other groups on end-of-life issues and presented a workshop for the 800 members of the American Holistic Medical Association on death and dying. We are so fortunate to have this amazing guest here today at a time where her words of wisdom, I'm sure, will have never been more relevant. Hello, Karen. Are you there?
Hello, Teresa. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, I'm so grateful. I can't wait to get started. Anyway, I think the world has never needed to hear your message about what truly matters in life than right now. Do you feel the current crisis is a global call to everyone to find deeper meaning in their lives and focus on what really matters? The world was rather, well, it's always been, but it was getting increasingly materialistic and selfish in recent years. I'd love your thoughts on that, the spiritual perspective of what's happening right now.
Yes, I definitely do see this unprecedented event as an opportunity for all of us to we're actually being asked to sit in isolation, to be still and quiet, and it's such a time to go within and really look at what matters to us and what we value in life. And it's something that some of us have wished that people would do for several decades now. And here it is. Everyone has been thrust into this situation when the only thing they have to do is to sit still and be quiet. So I think it's a great opportunity for transformation.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because 2020 means clear vision. And here we are in 2020. I mean, the universe works in such mysterious ways. Do you feel that almost like we're all in a state of bereavement right now because we've lost our old way of life, or you know, life after the virus is going to be different? And we never got a chance to say goodbye, really. Lots of people are saying not got a chance to say goodbye to loved ones now because of the isolation. But a lot of us never got a chance to say goodbye. We didn't realize what we had, and then it was gone.
Yes, I definitely think there is this collective sense of grief and even trauma from all of the losses that all of us are experiencing. But what I have learned in the past from working in hospice and being with patients and family members who are going through grief, that time it's a very rich and ripe time when we do have this chance to look deeper within ourselves and to actually make changes in our lives and discover what we value the most. And so I think that yes, we're all grieving, but I think it's giving us this rich chance to grow and learn.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, when bereavement hit me, as it hits all of us at some point, it's a massive wake up call, isn't it? As the title of your book, which we'll come on into a minute, what really matters, and you question everything about your life, don't you? And can you talk us through the stages of grief, and what people will be kind of experiencing right now, especially if they've lost a loved one?
Well, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross came up with the 5 stages of grief that she observed with people going through massive changes. Some grief experts now dispute those stages, partly because they don't want people to feel that you go through all 5 stages or you have to go through them in order. But I still think there's a lot of relevance here in terms of the fact that we experience a lot of emotions all over the place when we are faced with significant loss. And I think the first reaction that many of us have is just denial. We simply can't believe it's
Hmm.
really happening. And I saw that all around me in the first weeks as we were watching the news coming in from China and then from Italy. None of us could quite believe it was true, and also could not believe that it would ever happen in our communities as well. And then there's a sense of bargaining that sometimes follows after that, which I found myself doing when it was time to become more isolated and stay at home, bargaining, well, if I stay home and cancel my trip this week, in a few more weeks, I'll be able to do whatever I want, trying to make trade offs. And there's also a sense of anger. And I've seen a lot of people going through anger over the fact that this really hit us out of the blue. None of us were prepared for this or expecting it. And I think particularly the idea, like I work in the end of life arena with a lot of people in hospice and who are death doulas who support families when they have a loved one dying. And none of us had ever considered the fact that something might happen that would actually prevent us from being physically present with
Oh,
our
I
loved
know.
ones as they're
Mm,
dying. That
mm,
has been a huge shock to all of us in this field that I'm in, but also to all of the people out there who are having loved ones die. And then
yeah.
the other stages of Kubler-Ross are depression. All of us have been there off
Yep.
and on in the final stage of acceptance. And again, I'm not sure where we all are right now. I think we're all going back and forth and up and down in all of those stages.
I think I'm noticing a sort of a resignation now, sort of hitting the world, isn't it? We finally get it, and I hope that the next stage, if there is another stage to grief, is kind of finding meaning and understanding and moving forward. But it, you touched on not being able to say goodbye, and that's one of my biggest regrets. I wasn't there when my mother died, and often it really it does impact you. And now this is happening. Thousands and thousands of people are experiencing this. What would you be your advice to these people who weren't there to hold the hand, or to, it is a privilege to be with someone who's passing, and to be denied that privilege?
Yes, one thing that I've become aware of spiritually on my own spiritual path is that we are never truly disconnected spiritually from our loved ones. So even if we're not physically together or present, we're still exchanging in this on the spiritual level love with them. And so I try to remind people of that, that love is not bound by time or space. And so that our loved ones, even if we're remote from them, can still experience the fact that we are loving them and caring for them, and we're thinking of them constantly, sending them all of this energetic love from our hearts. And I do believe that that can help sustain them, even though they're lying in a hospital bed somewhere, with
Mm.
perhaps a nurse or doctor holding their hand instead of one of their family members.
I couldn't agree more. And anyone who has lost a loved one, they will know that sense that that person is somehow alive within them. It's very hard to describe unless you've lost a loved one, that you just know that person is still somewhere there in your dreams, in your heart, around you. I mean, I have some of the great conversations with people I've loved and lost now in my head, and it's that ongoing connection in spirit. Um, which you also write so eloquently about. And I'd love to talk about your book at the moment, because so many people losing loved ones right now. Um, what really matters is coming up, isn't it? Where you share the life lessons and spiritual transformation experienced by your patients and their loved ones, and also your own experiences at end of life. Could you share talk about that book a bit more? How you wrote it, and how did you choose which stories, and maybe one lesson that you could share with the listeners of this episode?
Yes, the book really came. I mean, I ended up doing hospice work in my career out of my own grief after my father died by suicide. So I went
Oh,
through a devastating period myself in my own life of grief and guilt. And that's what led me to hospice. I was trying to understand death and dying and grief. And I thought maybe if I start working in this area, it will help me figure out how to heal myself, because I still was very broken with my own grief. And once I started seeing patients in hospice, I came to recognize that that was the type of medicine I was really meant to practice all along. That's where I needed to be. So I left my family practice clinic and started working in hospice full time. And there I watched all of my patients and their families on this very spiritual journey, which is what happens at the end of life, particularly when patients have a slower dying process and they have time for contemplation, time for healing and forgiveness to take place. I watched what they were experiencing, and it really became clear to me that dying is a very important spiritual passage for all of us. And so these lessons came to me that I was witnessing my patients learn, and I was learning from them as well. And what struck me, one of my patients said to me, I wish that I had learned these things 20 years ago. It would have
Mm.
changed how I lived my life if I had understood what I see now through my dying process. And that's what inspired me to think, what if I shared all these stories and taught people what my patients have learned so that they could change their lives now instead of waiting until they're on their deathbed.
Thank you so much. And I'm so glad that you did share them. The book is mesmerizing, life changing, and I strongly urge everyone listening to check it out. It's called What Really Matters: 7 Lessons for Living from the Stories of the Dying by Dr. Karen Wyatt. Is there any story in particular that particularly spoke to you, that you felt, I know it must have been very hard to select because you must see thousands and thousands, well, thousands of people in your line of work, but was there one that really moved you more?
One of the most profound lessons that I learned was the lesson of forgiveness. And we talk about forgiveness a lot, I think, in the spiritual realm. But watching patients really struggle with forgiveness at the end of life, and many of them felt overwhelmed. They'd been carrying bitterness and resentment for years and years, and suddenly recognized at the very end of life, I don't want to take this burden with me anymore. I want to die in peace. I need to resolve these issues and this bitterness that I've carried. And that made a huge impact on me, realizing I too had was carrying my own burden of grudges and resentment. And it made me realize I want to start practicing forgiveness now. And there was a very sweet story of a family that came to forgiveness. They were um, siblings who were separated, a brother and 2 sisters. The brother was the black sheep of the family and had been estranged from the family for years. And when their mother was dying, he came back wanting to visit her. And the sisters were angry. They wanted nothing to do with him. But it turns out that he spent time with their mother and found out that she was very disappointed because she had this practice of making a little rug for each one of her great grandchildren when they were born as a gift that had their name and date of birth on it. And she had a new grandchild on the way, but she wasn't well enough to be able to make the rug for this new granddaughter that would be coming possibly after she even died. So her son, without telling his sisters, took the rug and finished it for the mother so that it would be ready to get ready as a gift for the great granddaughter. And when the 2 sisters saw that act of love by their brother, it immediately melted all of their anger that they had stored up for so many years. And it was the most beautiful resolution to see between all of them come together. The mother was so happy to see her children reunited, and all 3 of them were there with her when she died. And so it was just a simple act, but simple stories like that that showed me the power of forgiveness. And when we can come together again with people, recognizing people are in our lives for a reason. It's not an accident sometimes that we have the family members we have. They might be there to challenge us in certain ways and to help us learn forgiveness. And I saw that happen over and over again. So it really taught me to start doing my own forgiveness practice now.
Yeah, do it now if you're listening. I mean, do you agree that so much of our energy is spent on things that really don't matter? And that's why I love the title of your book, What Really Matters, because
Oh,
you
yes.
you really get to what really matters in this book.
Yes, and carrying resentment in particular keeps us stuck in the past, which does no longer exists. And it's a complete waste of our energy. And it keeps us from being fully in the present moment, right here, right now, where we could be taking in everything around us and experiencing joy in this moment. Instead, we're stuck feeling angry about something that happened a long time ago.
Ah, sage advice. Do I mean, it's a very spiritual book as well as a very informative and insightful read. Do you believe in life after death? I noticed you are supporting, I believe it's Soul Phone. I'm not sure because I recently had them as guests on White Shores. Do correct me if I'm wrong. Um,
Oh,
is that
yes,
the
I absolutely do believe.
Yeah, I had them. They're one of the episodes in this season. I found this. I hadn't heard of them before. I found it extremely intriguing. Then, as I was researching, I suddenly, oh gosh, she's going to be. It was very interesting that coincidence. So, do you believe in it? Life after death. I mean, I'm very open minded. I want to believe it. Um, but I always say to my readers, I could be wrong. Nobody knows for sure, do they?
No, I mean, that's true. No one knows for sure, but I just because of many experiences I've had in my life and then also experiences with patients in hospice, um, it feels clear to me that there's something beyond this life. So many of my patients had visitations before they died from loved ones who had already died, and there was such a strong sense that they were just being surrounded by a group of people who had already left the planet but were there waiting for them to welcome them. And so it's hard to deny that when you see it happen over and over again.
Yeah, there is increasing amount of research now. I work closely with the Windbridge. Well, not closely, but I've collaborated on things with Windbridge and the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and I've been fascinated by this research I did not know was going on. And I guess Soul Phone is all a part of this, and they're taking it one step further, aren't they? We're trying to equipment to help you connect to the other side. What are your thoughts on that? I must admit, I found it tough to get my head around, but talking to them, I got it at the end. I'd love your perspective on that.
I like you, I love the idea of
Yeah.
it. I'm still not sure what to think about it. And
But then heaven is, hang on, heaven's on hold. Just wait a minute.
well,
I got it in my WhatsApp. Heaven, okay. No.
and having had both of my parents die, I mean, there are days when the thing I miss
Mm.
the most is being able to pick up the phone and talk to my mom and just, ask her advice or get a recipe or see how her day is going. And so I
Again, you
think,
say the simple things and we take for granted, and that's what death teaches. Don't take any of those things like asking your mum for a recipe. It's not every day. It's a miracle, those things, aren't they?
oh yes.
Um, anyway, your biography also says you've advised the Senate. Now that's fascinating, especially right now. What would you advise them right now with the current situation? A
Well,
big question, but sorry to put you on the spot, but it's extraordinary times, so an extraordinary question.
Well, here in the US, we suffer with a terribly fractured healthcare system.
Mm.
And so that is the thing that I would most like to repair if we could. We need to make healthcare available to everyone. It should not be considered a privilege, it should be a right. And so that's actually when I spoke to the Senate, we were presenting to them a model of how to provide healthcare. Our clinic was a clinic for low income, uninsured people who were at high risk for a lot of various chronic illnesses, and so we had a very successful model of incorporating behavioral health so we could help people change their lifestyle, get more exercise, eat a healthier diet, and it was working very well. And that's what we wanted to present to those senators, that if you have this vision in your mind of how we could do what's right for everyone and provide everyone with what they need and treat our patients as whole people, not just as physical bodies, but treat them as whole people and meet their emotional needs and their social needs as well, we can help them be healthier in all ways in their lives. We did it in the clinic that I ran. And so that's what we were testifying about. But that message still hasn't gotten through and still needs to help us make change.
Well, I hope so. And as I said, it's extraordinary times. So I think now the potential for extraordinary developments and leap forwards, I always live in hope. Um, when in my late teens, I worked as a care assistant, just in a hospice as well. And it was utterly life changing for me. And to sort of witness someone passing did feel like a privilege. It also felt to me like when someone died that I don't know if you feel like that. It's almost like they're taking their clothes off, and when you take your clothes off, it's like the jacket's on the floor, but the person's not the jacket anymore. It's like something went. The spirit. They look so light. I, I'm trying to sort of articulate, but does the dying process still feel? Initially, with me, it was feelings of sadness, but over time, it became almost like such a natural phase of life, a miracle, just as birth is a miracle. I began to see death as a miracle. Is that how you feel now?
Yes, very much so. And I agree with you. It's hard to explain to someone who hasn't seen it happen. But over and over again, when I would go sit with someone who was very close to death, oftentimes they would have a glow about them, this luminosity that was so beautiful. And initially I kept thinking, where's that light coming from? Is there a lamp on in the room? Until I realized it's coming from the patient. And I really recognized this is their soul that's shining through. And there was a clear transition that took place when you were with someone as they were dying. You can feel it even in the energy in the room. You feel the shift
Yeah.
when they take their last breath. And to me it felt clear, like this soul is leaving this body behind, and it's almost a joyful moment because the soul is released finally, and whatever suffering was happening within the physical body is no longer happening for that soul.
Yeah, I very poorly described it, and you just described it so eloquently. What I was trying to say. Thank you so much about this shift, and also the joy. I'm going to talk about joy now. Do you, I know people think of death as somber, but has there been laughter? Have you found that there is also any stories of laughter as someone was passing? I mean, perhaps the best way to go that you feel that, or is it always very deep and heavy and somber?
I saw many families enjoying laughter right up until the last moment. And sometimes the patient was involved in the laughter. Sometimes the humor came from the patient and something the patient said. I came to visit one couple. The wife was dying, and before she died, she was very close to dying, but she was trying to teach her husband how to cook. And so
You need another
she
lifetime for that.
yeah, she was giving him instructions and yelling at him. And as I got there, he had just finished making some spaghetti, but he'd burned the noodles. And
Oh.
so they were laughing hysterically when I entered the room. And I just thought, this is the sweetest thing. Again, it's the simplest day-to-day life. They're laughing, and she said, I don't think I can die now because you're not going to make it if you have to eat your own cooking. And so together we just sat and laughed about that moment. And within a couple of days, she had died. But yet there was this humorous celebration together in a way.
Oh, that's extraordinary in the ordinary. I absolutely love that. And we need to hear stories of laughter like that now. We really do. Can you tell listeners how to get a copy of What Really Matters, where it's available, and also how people can find out more about you?
Well, what I should let people know, excuse me, sorry for that, is that the book is being republished by Watkins in the UK under the title Seven Lessons for Living from the Dying. And it is being released on May 12th and will be available on Amazon for sure, because I'm not sure the print copies can come out yet. I don't
No, it's
know.
tough, isn't it? Is it available as an ebook or and audio?
Yes, it will be available as an ebook for sure right away, and it's available for pre-order before May 12th. But then it's coming out then.
So it's a
And
reissue. So from the original one, this book has been so popular and so much loved. That's why it's being reissued. But did you add something more to it? Did you write a new
I
forward? Did you add something?
Yes, I did. I updated it with a new introduction and wrote some new intros for each one of the lessons and reflected a little bit more on caring for our planet and how we can use these lessons to remind us to take care of our home here on planet Earth. So I did, and also added a workbook appendix at the end that has a lot of exercises people can do if they want to be working on these lessons from the book and learning them.
Oh, I do really hope everyone listening, you really do need to go and get a copy of this book. I know it's difficult times, but do try to, because it will give you comfort, hope, inspiration, and insight. We all need insight now. It's almost like we need to know how to have a fulfilling life and to regroup after this huge hit that the planet has taken. And you must be very intuitive, Karen, to do this reissue. Why did your spirit choose you to reissue it in 2020? Because this is what the world needs to hear. I think it happens for a reason. That's my opinion.
Well, I got invited by Watkins a year and a half ago. They asked if I would like to do a
So that's a
revision.
long time. I mean, normally
Yeah,
it doesn't take that long. Why? And I know why. That's the universe slowing it down so that it hits just at the right time. I mean, it's just coming out at the time we need to hear it. We need to hear it any age, any time. But right now, with death center stage, we need it.
yes, you're right. That's how I took it at first. I was disappointed that, oh no, what? It will take a year and a half for the book to come out. And but little did I know at the
Well, there's a
time.
lesson there, isn't it? I mean, the book's
Yes.
all about lessons that sometimes we're frustrated, if a relationship breaks down, a job doesn't work out, or an exam's failed, or things just don't work out, and we think, oh, this is why, you try and force it, but it's not happening. Just as Karen wanted the book to come out earlier because she was excited about it, and rightly so, for a reason, because this is the right time for it to come out. I'm so grateful for being able to spend time with you today. Thank you, Karen. And just before you go, we spoke recently, just a few minutes ago, about laughter and everything. So I always put my guests through this ordeal of a question related to my passion for the Lord of the Rings, hence the title White Shores. If you know Lord of the Rings, you'll understand why it's called White Shores. And I did this with the scientists in season 1, and it was quite funny because none of them had read it. So I quite enjoy now asking people a question that they cannot answer. So this is the question you shall not pass. And your question is, at the end of Return of the King, where does Frodo go? Do you know the name of the place he goes?
Ooh,
Don't
no.
Google.
No, I don't. I've
Good,
I've heard
good.
the name Frodo, but I don't know.
You have. That's all right. I'm glad you didn't answer it because there's a reason. Again, your intuition guided you not to Google, because anyone who knows the correct answer to that, any fans of the Lord of the Rings out there, that you are out there, I will find you. Please email me at angeltalk710@aol.com, and the correct answer, I will give you a free dream interpretation or birthday profile. See, you not getting it right help someone get a free gift.
And that's a wonderful lesson in itself.
Thank you from my heart, Karen. Please keep doing the amazing work you do, and I'm glad we're in touch. And I'm just thrilled that you're a part of season 2, which is all about presenting authentic authors, experts, doctors, psychologists who I feel are the real deal, and I just so want people out there to check out and find out about. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Teresa. It's been such a pleasure to talk with you.
And before this episode closes, with a musical gift for you to close your eyes and visualize the pure love, wonder, beauty of White Shores, I want to thank you all from my heart for being present and for being you. Keep being amazing spiritual you. The world needs your compassionate light more than ever. Thank you also to Clan Ree for the opening theme track. And if you have any questions, stories, or insights you want to share with me, you can always connect to me via my Teresa Chung author pages on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, as well as www.teresachung.com and my trusty angeltalk710@aol.com email. I aim to reply to everyone, but bear with me if things get busy. And now it's time. The language that the angels speak, music, takes center stage. If you want to know the title of the piece, which is played by or selected by my son and Royal College of Music scholar Robert, because it resonates powerfully with the theme of this specific episode, you can find the title in the show notes. Sending you my love and gratitude.